Hi, I'm Mary, a librarian and book reviewer with a focus on stories written for kids, tweens, and teens. Today, I am joined by Gianna Marino, who was born in San Francisco and spent her early years galloping horses through Golden Gate Park. Gianna has written over a dozen award-winning books, including Night Animals and Two Tall Houses. Though she still wanders the world, Gianna now lives in Southern Colorado on an elk reserve and works full-time writing and illustrating. Welcome, Gianna. It's so great to have you.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, when I first encountered you in real life was a couple weeks ago at the Dolly Parton's homecoming, and you were talking about one of the books that you have in Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. And I was wondering if you wanted to talk a little bit about that book and how it got selected and what things kind of went into that process for you.
Yeah, thanks. That was such a fun event, by the way, to work on. And for anyone watching who doesn't know about the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, it is an incredible, incredible program, and I'm super happy to be part of it. I've had four books chosen for the Imagination Library over the years, and the most recent is The Outside. And this one, I think it's being released in August to the Imagination Library. So it's out in stores now, but the library will have it available in August. And this story, this is one of my favorites at the moment. I live in Southern Colorado, and this is all about little prairie dogs. And this main character, Earl, is running all over around my house. So I see him often. But he was a really great inspiration. And I wrote this during COVID when we were first in lockdown, and there was just so much indoor time. And I think a lot of us wanted to go out and explore, but all this stuff was going on we didn't really know, and there was a lot of fear about going outside and about being with other people. So I love to use animals to tell my stories, and we can talk a little bit more about that. But I thought, what animal would be so perfect that's always hiding away anyway and kind of afraid of things? Like little prairie dogs are always like, there's something out there, and they're always scurrying around and diving in their holes. And I thought that would be such a great critter to use for this story. And little Earl in the story he's too afraid to go outside, and all his friends are always out there playing and running around, and he's down there just like, watch out for the weather, and there's coyotes and there's eagles, and he's so afraid, and they just sort of ignore him. And then they eventually have something happen to them, and he sort of saves them from the outdoors, but then they help him find his what he loves about the outdoors, and they help bring him outside, and he starts to appreciate it. So and as for the books that are chosen for the Imagination Library, in regards to your question, which I went all over the place with, is they only work with Penguin Random House, and they all of the books that are published in that year, I believe the selection committee goes through and they pull ones that have certain aspects that fit into the Imagination Library curriculum. I don't know if curriculum is the right word for it, but so they chose this one, and I think because it's about friendship and supporting those of us who have fears and how to help friends and be a supportive friend and community.
I think that book really does a good job of kind of encapsulating all of the feelings that were happening during COVID. Yeah,
Yeah.
oh no, I don't really want to go outside. No, it's fine. And
Yeah.
also, we all know somebody like that, maybe ourselves,
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
little bit.
everybody has a fear of some kind, whether it comes across as brave and fearless. There's always something in there, I think. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and also living in Colorado, I recognize the characters as well. It's like, yeah, those are just like all the prairie dogs that I see by my house too. They just all like to do that.
Yes, they do. They just love running everywhere.
Yes. So, yeah, you mentioned just a moment ago about animals being your primary focus in your book. So, as far as I'm aware, all of the books that you've illustrated feature animals. Is that correct?
Yes, there's one that has some people in it also, but it's almost, well, two. It's almost always animals. And the funny thing is, I didn't even really think that was doing any, like only focusing on animals. And I think I was doing a school visit forever ago, and a kid was like, "Hey, why do you always use animals in your books?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." But I think they have so many traits and characteristics and personalities that are because of their species or their breed or their whatever. And not that humans don't on a certain level, but humans are kind of more all similar in their way. But animals just have, like, prairie dogs were the perfect thing to use for this thing that was scared to go outside, because they truly are scared to go outside. And in all of the books, all the animals that I use have some connection to what the story is about that are really about the animal and about their innate characteristics and personalities. And whether it's like Meet Me at the Moon, I used elephants for deep family connection and remembering things, which they're known for. We Will Live in This Forest. This is one of my other favorite books. I read this when I was in the 2017 wildfires in California. And this is all about these animals actually lived around me in the forest, and I saw them actually coming back after the fire and their resilience and even the forest as we love it was ruined and the trees were burnt. As soon as the rain came and the shoots came up, these little guys came out and they're like, okay, we got this, we can survive in this. And so anyway, I feel like all the animals have a story to tell, and I try to line them up with things that us little humans can relate to.
What brought you to children's books in particular, as far as writing and illustrating?
I've always, always, always loved children's books. Of course, when I was little, but then when I was older, even as a teenager, I was super into, I was always drawing, and I didn't really have any idea that I wanted to be an artist or an author, but I would go to the library and just pour through books, and I just love them. And I love the stories, and I love the collaboration of pictures and words together. And I started working in toy design and product design, and I really liked it, but it was, oh God, it was just sort of limited, and you couldn't really do a lot. It was very sort of linear. And at that time, I started really researching more about picture books, and I took a class on how to write and illustrate them at UC Berkeley Extension in San Francisco. And I just started writing books, and I didn't really know what I was doing at all. I mean, I still don't think I know what I'm doing. Like every book's like a new journey, but I just was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like you could do anything. You could do anything. And yeah, there was a lot of constraints, like the size and the page turns and the numbers and subject matter. And there were so many things, but I had learned it in my design world that there were so many, it was all about problem solving in design. So it's all about like, here's your restrictions on all the things you can't do, come up with something good. And so I found picture books were really similar to that, that it was like all these things you could and could not do. So I felt really comfortable in that form. And then also, I think in the toy world, I did a lot of like fleshing out ideas. So we do one character and do all kinds of things with it. So I was kind of always working in that way, and picture books were pretty similar.
Cool. So a lot of your books you've written and illustrated both. And then I know that you've done at least one with Chelsea Clinton that you
Mhm.
illustrated for her writing. How does the process differ for you? Do you have a preference of whether you illustrate someone else's words or write your own?
I've mostly done my own, like you said. I'm working on my 20th book now, and I think I've illustrated two books that were not my own. I think that's right. And I don't mind doing it. The hardest part is that as I'm working on a story and adding the pictures to the words, if they come first or last, that changes. But I change stuff so much. And of course, when I'm not the writer, it's not my place to change it. So I'll sometimes say, hey, because I'm showing this illustration, that's going to kind of show some of what you're saying. Maybe we can tweak that a little bit. And so there's some collaboration that way. So I don't know, I like both. It's so neat to see someone else's story and to imagine what it looks like. And I can't imagine for an author what that must feel like, because I know that even if somebody doesn't draw or illustrate, they have an idea of what it's going to look like. And it's probably hard to see someone else take your work and make it look different. So I don't know, but I like both. I think it's really a neat collaboration. It's such a magical journey that happens.
Do you get a lot of feedback when you're working on someone else's book as far as your illustrations? Do you send an illustration to them and then they give you some thoughts about it and you have to tweak it, or how does that look generally from your side?
Typically, and I think this is pretty much the case, not 100%, but usually there's an art director in the middle, and they're the ones that's doing the communication. And I think they just keep it semi-separate in that way, just because an author is an illustrator is an illustrator, and they might not have the same words to or how do I say this? Like the same eye to change something, where the art director might see something with the more of the eye of an art director than a writer. So I mostly work with the art director and the editor, but of course the author has their say in what's going on and what they like and don't like. And um, I think in working with Chelsea Clinton, because it wasn't a story that was carrying a character throughout the whole story. It was each page was its own little segment. That was more just about capturing this overall feeling in the book, opposed to a character that was going through it. So it was a little bit different. Yeah.
Cool. So when you're creating your own stories that you're
hmm
writing and illustrating, do you always start with the story first and then the pictures come later, or does it ever go the other way? Or do you have a process that happens with that?
I wish I did. I don't. It's they're all a little bit different. I think the ones that have more text in them that are more sort of story heavy, I'll probably start with the text, like Meet Me at the Moon. Think I started that one with the story, but I don't know. Picture books are, as you know, right? There's so much information in the pictures themselves, and they tell so much of the story. So I feel like I just go back and forth a lot. I sometimes do a really rough manuscript, and then I'll page it out, like I'll cut it in strips that are going to be, my 32 pages or 30 or 40 pages or whatever it is. And I'll paste those down. Oh, I think I have a picture of them. I do. So I'll paste those down and then I'll put these little teeny tiny sketches next to them and just start on that level, just working really light. And then as I go, because of what I'm showing and or saying, like I change it a ton as I'm going along. So yeah, I wish I had a process that I could know, but yeah, every part I feel like the beginning is just like, well, I don't know what I'm doing.
But that's what makes it fun, right? That you can always just kind of come at
Yeah.
it from whichever angle makes most sense.
Absolutely. And I think every book is so different. Like Night Animals is literally just talk bubbles. So that one's really heavy on the illustrations and the words are very minor in it. Where some other books just have way more text that's telling the story and carrying it. And but yeah, it does make it fun and interesting. It's never the same and stagnant. That is for sure.
As you just brought up Night Animals, that the illustrations in that book are particularly fun because there's so much happening behind the scenes, and
Yeah.
especially with Opossum, and like just little moments of humor that can be just found outside of the text itself. Sometimes kids will see it maybe, and sometimes they might need some more support finding it, but I think it's
Yeah.
nice to have those elements worked into your illustrations also.
That was a really, really fun one to work on. And it's still one of my favorites to read in audiences and to assemblies and whatnot. I've had so many times where I start to read it in assembly with 200 kids and they know all the words. It's so cute. So they end up reading it as I'm, flipping through the slides or something. It's so cute.
Oh, it's like going to a rock concert for a book. That's so fun.
Yes, yes, I feel like a rock star with night animals.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you have a favorite character of all of the books that you've written or a favorite animal?
Oh God, it's so hard to answer that. I feel like there's different characters that I love for different reasons at different times in my life, if that's too broad of an answer. But like Earl, when I was writing that, I just love his little personality and his kind of his vulnerability. Like that to me is just so sweet. This one just came out this year. I Love You, Little Horse. And there's not really a character with a name in this book, but it's you obviously get to know the mama and the baby. And like that just feels really like I don't know, I guess as a kid, my parents really encouraged me to go out and explore, but I also felt really protected by them, and that's what this story's about. So I love that little baby horse that he's encouraged to go, like go and explore and go see what's out there in the world. And so yeah, I don't know if there's one specific one. It's always hard to answer that.
That's okay. Is there a character that you often find yourself doodling, or does that change too?
Oh, that's a good question. Possum from Night Animals, because he's so goofy, I really like drawing him a lot. And just his like deadpan looks and his eyes swirling. Yeah, he's one of my favorites. And I love horses. So my book, If I Had a Horse, which is all silhouettes, that one's really fun to work on too, because it's just shapes. And so there's no detail in the hooves or the face or the hair. Like it's literally just silhouette shapes. And I love doodling that one because I don't know, it's more of just like a feeling and opposed to a character, like
Yeah.
Opossum.
And like you said, picture books, you can kind of go in all sorts of different directions, like the nonfiction ones that you've illustrated, and then some that are more lyrical, maybe, or more narrative, or just like the fun interactions between the characters. So it's fun that we can see all of that diversity in your work, and that everyone can kind of find maybe a book or a path that will fit for them, even if it's not always the same every time.
Yes, yes, agreed. Thank you for saying that. That's
Oh,
what I hope to strive.
yeah, good. Um, what do you do any sort of research or preparation as you're putting together your books? If you've, maybe never drawn those animals before or things like that, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, good question. So all my books are so different, obviously. Some of them I think there's a lot like Night Animals, for instance, they like I'd never written, drawn, blah, a possum before really like that, right? Like maybe a sketch, but in all these poses and stuff. So if I can see the animal in real life, I will. And I have done a ton of traveling where I can sometimes be lucky enough to see them. A possum, I've seen them on the street, running across, but not enough to study them. So, but I'll do a lot of research online or watch nature videos and just kind of get an idea of what they're kind of, just kind of the general, like the shape of their body, the folds of their ears, the pointing of their nose, like whatever the things are that make them them. And then, of course, take that and sort of turn it into my own version of. Um, and then some of them, like We Will Live in This Forest Again, that I was telling you, that one's more in the style of If I Had a Horse. So it's more silhouettes and with a little bit of detail. And that one was a really interesting one to paint because there's a couple scenes in it. Let me see if I could find it really quick, where there's not a lot of detail in the animals. And let me see, there's one I'm looking for. Like this one, it's so scary, right? So it's just these shapes. And these are the animals when they're running through the forest when it's burning. So I think a lot about what animals would work for that are just silhouettes and just shapes. And obviously like the deer and the legs and the ears, like it's very classic deer look. And a horse is like that also. I was messing with a story recently about hippos and like they're not great at like they don't have a lot of flow to them, right? They're just kind of these big, more static things. So like I probably wouldn't use that style with the hippo. It might not be as interesting as it was with these animals that have a lot of movement in them. Um, I'm trying to think if there's any like Meet Me at the Moon with the elephants. I did get to go to Africa and see them in person in Thailand, and that was really, really amazing to see that. So to bring some of that home with me and think about what the character feels like. And
That's great. Do you use the same kind of illustrative techniques in each book, or do you change it up sometimes?
yeah, definitely change them up. I mean, I always start with these tiny little sketches that I showed you, and I make these little teeny tiny little mock-ups of the stories, and they're just tiny, right? And I always do this with every single book. And from here, I then look at the story and go, like for instance, I Love You Little Horses told it's one day. So it starts off at dawn and it goes till nighttime. And so I knew that all the colors of the background were going to be really important to tell part of that story, whereas Night Animals is all black in the background. So I would focus more on the animals. And then yeah, so definitely depending on what the story's about and what I'm like, If I Had a Horse is all about imagination. So that one really worked for this kind of dreamy, that one back here too, kind of more dreamy feeling. So this it's about a little girl imagining if she had a horse. And yeah, so they're all a little bit different. I think I would get a little bored doing the same thing over and over again. Or not bored, but just like stories call for a different look, maybe, or a different feel.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you hope that readers come away with after engaging with any of your books? You can pick one, or if you have a general sense, that works too.
Um, I think that my books are all so different, and it would be hard to pick one thing, except that I hope to really create a book that's timeless and that, you could have read it 20 years ago, or maybe in 20 years it still has a place, and that they all have a little bit of a story and message to them. And I hope at the end of reading them, there's something that makes them feel just like lighter, happier, or Night Animals sillier, just something that brings a little bit more knowledge and happiness to their life. Um, and again, that they're timeless and can kind of run through the cycle of our lives and the things we go through.
Love that. And then there's also the connection I feel like that they can get with the characters, like the groundhog that you said, or the prairie dog, and his feelings. But you learn about prairie dogs, and then you also have that anchor point of a character with a name and behaviors that then you can resonate with afterwards, when you might
Yes.
encounter a prairie dog in real life.
Yes, or a person, a little friend who's maybe similar to Earl, and you might ignore his fears at first and then go, oh, you know what? I'm gonna listen to what you're saying because you're scared of this thing. And but yeah, for sure. And I think I'm just working on a book. I'm sorry, I'm done with this book. It's coming out next spring. It's called We All Belong, and it's about not belonging, and it's about feeling like you're different and left out. And I hope that that one will let children, especially because it's for them, to see like, hey, I'm different from that person over there, but they belong too. It doesn't make them any lesser or whatnot. And it's really about finding differences and celebrate or finding likenesses and celebrating differences and realizing it's okay to be different. And so I hope that book brings that to the world because
Is
we
that a
need some
person-centric book or an animal-centric book? Out of
animals
curiosity.
again.
Animals again.
Animals, yeah, and I wish I had I don't even have a copy of it yet, or I'd show you guys. But yeah, it's all about animals and they're all comparing their likenesses to start. And then there's a character that comes in that has no likenesses at all to them. And they're sort of, like how do you fit into this world? And that character then wants to just go away and be gone. And the other ones realize how hurt he is and they say, wait, 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 look at, look how different we are too. Like we have all these differences. So I'm
Oh, I
excited for
love
that
it.
one. I can't wait for it. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it'll
I'm
be
excited to
good.
see it too. You said next spring.
Yeah, I think it's March 26th.
Exciting.
I
That's so
know.
great. Do you have any advice that you would like to impart to future authors or illustrators who might be listening?
Such a good question. And it's funny you should ask that because I was just talking to a friend of mine and I was struggling with a couple stories and I was like, I don't know what to work on next. And she said, well, do what you always say, which is write from things that you love, write about what you're scared of and what you dream of and the things that are close to your heart. And I've talked about before about like when I started, I think I was trying to follow the market in a way and kind of like, okay, what would sell and what's going to be popular and what are people going to like? And it just didn't, I don't know, it just didn't work. It didn't, there was no like honest heart in it, if I could say that. And I think writing about things that you like and that you know and that you or that you're interested in or whatever these things are that really inspire you as a writer. And it could be anything. That's what's so great about picture books is you could pick any subject in the entire world and turn it into somehow a book for children. And that's what I love about picture books is like they're so versatile and it could be a story about one thing, but it can really have this meaning of like, oh wow, I didn't even get that it was really about this. Or I've even written books before where sometimes in the reviews they'll start talking about stuff. I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about that, and it's really kind of cool because you just are writing these things that are important to you. So that's always been really fun.
Yeah. And I bet that that makes it more meaningful too, that it comes from a place of honesty as opposed to just like trying to figure out what the world
Yeah.
is like. It sounds like maybe that was from your previous experience building toys, you said. Um,
Yeah, designing toys.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
that
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 was
makes sense to follow the market for that kind of thing. And so
absolutely.
maybe transitioning to books was the right choice for you.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and even in doing gift wear and design stuff, it was all about kind of what trends are happening and colors and themes and all these things. And it's like, I don't know if that is going to work with books. And maybe it does for some people and hooray for them. Like I think it's, whatever it works. But I would say starting out, if you're looking for things to go for, just follow your heart and do what you love or what you're scared of or whatever these things are.
I love it. So you told us about the book that is coming out in the spring, but I imagine that's mostly in production now. So would you like to share something else that might be currently in process?
Well, I have a few little ideas that I'm fiddling with that are, they're this big. So, um, and I think my favorite one right now is about a Mustang. And I adopted a Mustang horse, not the car. I think it's been 4 years now, and it's been quite a journey with this little guy, and he's awesome and he's a good pal. But I wanted to sort of follow if I had a horse because I love horses, and there's such a connection between horses and humans. And so I'm working on a story about a Mustang and sort of its version of what it's like to be taken from the wild and put in these holding pens, and then just kind of waiting for your new life to begin. And that feeling of when there is that connection with a person, like what is that and what's that about? And it's a lot. It's intense.
Yeah, but again, drawing from real life, and I bet you'll see some of your Mustang in those pictures too, probably.
For sure. Yes. Yes.
Awesome. What question did I not ask you that you wish I had asked you?
Ooh. Um, so one thing that I always love to know from other artists, because I love watching these interviews and learning about other people's the process. I'm so interested in that. And I guess like what's the hardest part in the process of making a picture book is what I'm always like, I want to know from everybody else, like, what's your hardest part? And I always feel like it's the very early stages of it is that the idea, it's the best idea in the world. And it's like, oh my God, this is incredible. Nobody's done this before. And then you start doing it and trying to do those little sketches, and they're awful. And you're just like, oh, this is the dumbest, worst idea I've ever had. And then you start working on it, you're like, oh, this is going to be amazing. I can see it. And it does this like up and down yo-yo thing. And it's crazy making. It's crazy making. So I think that part for me is really hard. And the other part is some of the books that have like Two Tall Houses has so much detail in it, and that was a really long process of drawing it. And you can't see the book anymore as an artist, like you're just because you stare at it all day long, it's not fresh anymore. And so that book, when I had to turn it in, I almost didn't. I thought I was like, this is horrible. I can't even see what I've finished, and I don't like how it came out. Like I was a disaster, and it was fine. It was like I literally couldn't see it anymore. And I think that part's really hard too, because you have a deadline and you have to keep moving forward. And even though you might start questioning, like, what about this color? What about this page? And it's like there's no time to sit and ponder variations. Like you have to get it done. And I think that part's really hard for me in the go, go, go. Stay true to what you think you're doing and just go forth. That's another hard one.
That makes sense. Something that
Mm.
you mentioned too about saying like this is a great idea, nobody's ever done it
Yeah.
before. Do you spend a lot of time looking at picture books that are not your own to see what has been done or not been done?
So if I'm working on a new book, I do not look at anybody else's book that might have the same animal. Like I don't want to get influenced in any way by it. So yes, I look at picture books all the time, but if I like looking at stuff that's nothing like my own work, and also stuff where I'm like, how did they do that? Like that's amazing. But yeah, if it's anything like I'm working on this Mustang story right now, like I won't go Google and see what other Mustang stories there are. Like I want to just have it first come from work, from my heart and from my insides and not be influenced by anything else that I see. And that's always a little tricky because I also want to know, but I think it's so easy to shoot down ideas. And in fact, my very first book, I did it in that class I told you about, the UC Berkeley class, and the assignment was to draw a page from an alphabet book. And because I had been in toy design and it was all about product development, I was like, well, I can't do one page. I have to see what the whole thing's going to look like. So I wrote the whole book in the class, and I ended up selling it, which was amazing. It was totally lucky. And the funny thing is, later after that, I was reading more about picture books because I was just learning about, like, well, tell me more. And one of the things that said, don't do alphabet books, they never sell. And that was, you know what I mean? So it's like, I think if you come from a place that's like really what you want to be doing and creating, then there's a voice for it. But don't listen to all the rules, except for the page numbers. You got to know those.
Yeah, that's true.
That is true. Some things you can't work around.
Yes. When you're writing these books, do you have an intended audience age in mind, or does the book kind of come out and then you determine the age from there?
100% I just create it and I don't even determine it. Whoever the powers that be, they determine the age group. I heard somebody say once, was it Dr. Seuss maybe or I can't remember, but I don't know if it was Dr. Seuss, but they were like, I just write these things and then I don't like, in fact, I just wrote a novel and I finished it and I said, I have zero idea if this is YA or adult. Like, I don't know. I just wrote it. Picture books obviously are a little bit more in the theme of younger children. And but yeah, I don't really think about like, well, what would appeal to a 4-year-old or, because I don't know. I mean, I'm no pro at that. So I just write them and then the publishers put their stamp of where they go.
That's fun. So you wrote a novel. I feel like you
I
just slipped
did.
that in there. Is that
I
Is that a future project? Is that just like a something you just enjoyed doing, or is that a
That's so funny. I did just throw that in there. I have no idea where it will go. I like working on different things, and I don't know. I feel like there's something in like the beginner's mind when you go to do something that you've never done before to just like stimulate a different part of your mind. And I really like doing that. I love taking art classes and things that I have no idea how to do because it's fun. Like I'm not worried about being critiqued and reviewed. And um, so yeah, I actually started writing this book in 2003. And I don't want to throw the whole story out. A lot of it's from my own teenagehood and into my early 20s and from my journals. So I took from that. And part of it has to do with my father who died of cancer. And as I was writing the story, partly about his passing, my mother got cancer. And I just finished the first draft of it back in 2003, and she got cancer, and I was like, I can't even look at this thing. And it was only about a year ago that I pulled it out again and was ready to revise it. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's always a mystery.
yes, the creative journey. How
Yes.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, where can folks go to find out more about your books, your picture books, and perhaps this future novel? Where's a good spot for them to look for you?
So my website has all my books listed on it and my contact if anyone wants to contact me for any reason, and that's just giannamarino.com. There's also some things on YouTube of some past interviews and obviously this one, and I always encourage those because I think people ask different questions here and there, and it's always interesting to learn different parts. So that, and I do have Instagram, Gianna Marino Books. So I'm always posting both about my latest horse ride and adventure, and of course books and reviews and what's coming up. And the novel, who knows? That's a big mystery. I don't even want to say too much because it could be a big, stuff in the closet and off it goes. But you never know.
You
You
never
don't know
know.
if you don't try, right?
That's right. Yeah, get out there, put your heart out there and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, listeners, if any of Gianna Marino's books sound like great fits for you, I hope you look for them wherever you get your books. And Gianna, thank you so, so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure to speak with you as well.